The afternoon commute turned sour. Sydney's train network shuddered to a halt. Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, etched itself into memory. A significant power outage was the culprit. It struck near Strathfield, a critical junction. This wasn't just a minor glitch. It was a full-blown system shock. Thousands of homeward-bound passengers felt the impact almost instantly. The usual rhythm of the city's arteries seized. Trains stopped dead in their tracks. The news began to filter through slowly, then all at once, painting a picture of widespread disruption that would define the evening for many. The cause of this sudden paralysis was a dramatic one. A train, innocently making its way, became the agent of chaos. Part of its rooftop power connector, known as a pantograph, got snagged. It became disastrously entangled with the overhead power lines. This critical incident unfolded near Homebush. The time was just before 2:30 p.m., as the network was gearing up for peak hour. The entanglement was severe. It physically pulled down a section of the vital power infrastructure. Wires snapped. The flow of electricity ceased. The heart of the network suffered a sudden, violent blow. On board the train directly involved in the incident, confusion reigned. Approximately 300 passengers found their journey abruptly interrupted. One moment they were moving, the next stationary. The lights lightly flickered out. The hum of the train died. They were stranded between stations, unsure of what had happened or how long they would be there. This single train was the epicenter, but the problem wouldn't stay contained. The power it drew and the lines it brought down were interconnected with a much larger system. The safety of these passengers became the immediate priority for the authorities. The outage wasn't a localized affair. It rippled outwards with alarming speed. Almost every single train line in Sydney felt its effects. From the northern beaches to the western suburbs, the impact was profound. Services to the Central Coast and even far-flung Bathurst were caught in the net. Only the T4 South Coast line, for reasons of its independent power supply or location, managed to escape the widespread shutdown. For the rest of the network, it was a different story. Platforms began to swell. Information boards flashed unwelcome updates. The scale of the disruption was immense, paralyzing the city's primary mode of public transport. The 300 passengers on the train that first tangled with the power lines were not the only ones stranded. Their ordeal was just the beginning. 3 other trains, also carrying unsuspecting commuters, were stopped in their tracks by the sudden power loss. These trains too became metal cocoons, holding people captive as the situation unfolded. Eventually, the decision was made. Evacuation was necessary. Passengers from all 4 trains were carefully escorted off. They walked along the tracks towards the nearest stations. This was a slow, methodical process, prioritizing safety over speed, but adding to the growing delays across the entire system. Back at the major city hubs, the scene was one of controlled chaos. Central Station, usually a bustling interchange, became a sea of frustrated faces. Redfern Station mirrored this, with platforms dangerously overcrowded. Transport staff were deployed, doing their best to manage the throngs. Cones and bright tape were used at Central. They were an attempt to direct the flow of people and maintain some semblance of order, but the sheer volume of stranded commuters was overwhelming. The usual peak hour crush was magnified. Patience wore thin as people sought any information they could get about how to get home. Many commuters, faced with indefinite delays on the trains, looked for alternatives. Sydney's metro services saw a surge in demand. Stations like Victoria Cross became unexpectedly crowded. People hoped the newer, often more reliable metro could offer a way out. However, the metro network doesn't cover all the routes of the traditional train lines. This meant it was only a solution for some. For others, it meant navigating to a metro station, only to find another packed platform. The ripple effect of the train outage was spreading to other transport modes, putting them under immense strain. Transport for NSW began broadcasting advice. Their key message was to allow a lot of extra travel time. They urged passengers to delay any non-essential travel. If possible, people should avoid the train network altogether. Commuters were advised to check local bus routes. These were still running, though likely to be much busier. Alternatively, people should arrange their own transport if they could. Listening for announcements and constantly checking transport apps became essential. The official guidance underscored the severity of the situation. Getting home was going to be a significant challenge for tens of thousands. In the control rooms and on the ground, authorities moved to manage the crisis. Howard Collins, the head of transport for NSW, made important statements. He confirmed that power to the entangled train needed to be isolated. This was a critical safety step. It had to be done before passengers could be evacuated safely. His words highlighted the careful procedures involved. Rescuing stranded passengers was not a simple task. It required coordination and a focus on preventing any further incidents. The priority was human safety above all else. Even as the network groaned under the pressure of the outage, with trains at a standstill in key areas, alternative transport was desperately needed. Limited bus services were quickly arranged. These buses were tasked with replacing trains. They operated between Ashfield and Lidcombe, a key corridor affected by the outage. However, limited was the operative word. Buses have far less capacity than trains. They could only ever be a partial solution. They were also subject to Sydney's notorious road traffic. This was likely to be even worse as people took to their cars. The replacement buses were a stopgap, a necessary measure, but not enough to handle the sheer volume of displaced commuters. One notable and proactive measure was taken regarding ride-sharing services. Transport for NSW activated an existing agreement. This agreement was specifically with Uber. Its purpose was to prevent unreasonable surge pricing. During major disruptions, demand for taxis and rideshare skyrockets. Algorithms often push prices up dramatically. TFNSW's intervention aimed to protect passengers from exorbitant fares. It showed an awareness of the broader impact on commuters. It demonstrated a desire to mitigate at least one of the many frustrations. This was a small but significant step to ease the financial pain of the evening's travel woes. The political leadership also weighed in. Transport Minister John Graham issued a public apology. He acknowledged the very serious incident. He understood the huge disruption it had caused to countless lives. He specifically pointed out the train's position near Strathfield. This location, he described, was a major artery of the network. Its blockage had profound consequences. His apology was a necessary acknowledgement of the public's suffering. It also set the stage for questions about how such a critical failure could occur and what would be done to prevent a recurrence. Minister Graham's comments underscored the gravity of the situation. The fact that the incident occurred at Strathfield was particularly damaging. This area is a complex and vital nexus for multiple train lines. Any problem there inevitably has far-reaching consequences. It's like a blockage in a major highway interchange. The entire system quickly backs up. The minister's acknowledgement of this specific vulnerability highlighted the challenges faced by Sydney trains. Maintaining such intricate infrastructure is a constant battle. The disruption served as a stark reminder of the network's pressure points and the need for robust contingency plans when they fail. As evening wore on, the focus shifted to recovery. Teams of engineers and maintenance crews were on site. Their immediate task was to cut the entangled train free. This was a delicate operation. They also needed to assess the full extent of the damage to the overhead power lines. Recovery work would be complex and time-consuming. Updates were promised on the progress. Commuters anxiously awaited news. The big question was whether services would be back to normal for the Wednesday morning peak. The potential for ongoing disruption loomed large. The work was painstaking, and the clock was ticking. In an effort to keep some parts of the city moving, Sydney trains implemented shuttle services. These were not a full restoration of the timetable. Instead, they were designed to operate on sections of lines. They aimed to bypass the directly affected Strathfield-Homebush area. Shuttle trains ran to the north, west, and southwest. This provided at least some connectivity. It allowed some passengers to complete parts of their journeys. It was a strategy to salvage what they could. These partial services were better than nothing, but the network remained severely impaired, operating at a fraction of its usual capacity. The incident on May 20th left a lasting impression. Official statements expressed regret and promised investigation. The immediate focus was on restoring services fully. However, questions will linger. How can the network be made more resilient? What measures can prevent such a catastrophic failure of a pantograph or overhead lines? The thousands of delayed passengers will certainly remember the chaos. They will expect answers and improvements. The event serves as a critical learning opportunity for transport for NSW. Future commuters will hope those lessons are learned well to prevent another evening of citywide transport paralysis and frustration.